Welcome to the Fossil Fundamentals podcast, brought to you by fossilsuk.com. I'm Byron, paleontologist, geologist, and lifelong fossil hunter. And in this show, we sit down with collectors, experts, and adventurers to uncover the real stories behind the fossils. Welcome to Fossil Fundamentals podcast. Today's guest comes from one of the most iconic fossil hunting locations in the UK, the Isle of Wight. If you're into dinosaurs, this is the place to be. She's built up a reputation through guiding collectors and bringing the island's incredible past to life, from storm-churning cliffs to some of the UK's most exciting dinosaur discoveries. Today we're joined by Megan Jacobs. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi. You're right.
Right. Okay. So let's get into it, Megan. Tell people a bit about yourself. How did you get into fossil collecting? Was there a specific moment that got you hooked into fossils? And how did that progress throughout your life into what you do today?
So I was born on the Isle of Wight and I, grew up here. And I think I was very fortunate that my dad was really into fossil collecting and beach combing and things like that. So essentially we just spent my childhood down the beach, seeing what we could find. I remember finding like a really nice flint sea urchin in one of the beaches as like my first one ever when I was a kid, and tiny bit of turtle shell that really sort of sparked that addiction to.
Finding your first one is the goal. Find your first one, and then you start looking at all the bits of rock on the beach, and then you start seeing more and more and more, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, I've now got jars full of turtle shell, so the excitement for that is kind of worn off a little bit. But it was just what we did. We just went down the beach and looked for fossils, and then dinosaurs came along a little bit later looking for dinosaur bone. But I never set out to do it as a career. I actually initially went to university to do illustration. My A-level grades weren't brilliant, so went in to do illustration, and I just found that the first year I really enjoyed it. I liked the subject, but it wasn't very challenging. Everything I just needed a little bit more, and that summer I started looking at courses that you could do, and I saw the paleontology degree at Portsmouth, and they wouldn't let me in like through the proper way because of my results, but I managed to email members of the department and I kind of got in through the back door.
Right. Yeah.
Based on the fact I was fossil collecting, I knew all about the island, I had that enthusiasm. Initially it was like, it's something to do for 3 years, whilst I think about what I do, and I haven't actually looked back. It's now my entire life. I'm doing my research, my PhD project, running a fossil business. So it's taken over.
And the Isle of Wight is one of the places that is great for fossils, isn't it? Yeah, that's the thing.
Oh yeah, every beach you can find fossils on. We have such a varied amount of geology in such a short area. I mean, you can walk along like Compton Bay, which is very famous, and you go through 30 million years worth of geology. In under a mile, and almost all of it's fossiliferous. So you go from finding dinosaurs to then lagoons and lakes with sharks and things in, and then shallow seas to deep seas with ammonites and the sea urchins and things like that. So I think there's a bit of something for everyone on the island.
Well, I mean, one of the questions I've got is what makes it so special, the Isle of Wight, for fossils?
It's the varied geology, and actually a lot of our geology, like the dinosaur bearing rocks, they're of an age that's quite rare globally, and it's a period when the Atlantic was just starting to form, and it was kind of I call it a dinosaur crossroads. The American dinosaurs were coming down, the Asian ones were going across, so we have a mixture of all dinosaurs from around the world are on the Isle of Wight. And then you go north of the chalk into the Eocene deposits. And again, that's globally important for the mammals.
Yes. Yeah.
So we have very unique mammal fauna. And then you see the turnover in mammals from like European mammals, and then the sort of mammals come in from over Asia and completely replace them. So it's a very important time in mammal evolution as well.
I mean,
just very lucky.
I mean, obviously, what a lot of people would like to know is why the Isle of Wight and not, say, middle of Birmingham. But I mean, I could probably answer this question as well
Yeah.
for you. But I mean, at that time, there was the main land masses weren't actually in
Mm,
those particular areas. It was actually
no,
much further north, or much
mm,
further south.
yeah.
So that's why you get the dinosaurs down more on the south coast than you would ever do further north.
Yeah, and it's just we've had a lot of sort of tectonic uplift.
That's
We
right.
don't have, tectonic plates here, but the effects of the Pyrenees and Alpine orogenies have basically lifted up the geology
Yes. Yeah.
um really quite a lot. So you get the Wessex Formation or the Wealden under a lot of the geology on the mainland, but it just hasn't been lifted up
Exposed.
and exposed.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
yeah. So
Yes.
if the
So it's
Pyrenees didn't form, we wouldn't have dinosaurs here.
no,
It'd still be
absolutely.
buried,
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
so I mean, those horizons are available in the British Isles, but it's so far down, it just doesn't get exposed. It only gets exposed where there's cliff sections,
yeah,
or on the Isle of Wight where you've got a lot of erosion by the sea. And that's why
yeah,
you get those particular outcroppings available. It's
yeah,
almost like
yeah.
taking slices through a cake, isn't it? Really.
Mm.
And the further down
Oh
you
yeah,
go, the more layers you see further down,
yeah,
and then the jam is where the dinosaurs are. That's
yeah,
how I kind
yeah.
of view it.
Exactly. Yeah,
If you
yeah.
like a Victorian sponge cake,
Okay,
which I
yeah,
do.
yeah.
And the main age of the rocks in the Isle of Wight, what age are those?
So the dinosaur rocks are early Cretaceous. They're about 130 to 125 million. And then as you kind of make your way north
Yep.
to Cowes on the island or on
Yeah,
like Yarmouth, you go to about 30 to 35 million.
yeah, and
So we have
that's the
100
Eocene period. That's
million
right.
years worth of rocks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's quite
Yeah.
diverse, really,
Oh
and
yeah.
that you don't get that kind of snapshot anywhere else in Great Britain, do you?
No, it's really quite unique, especially with all the Eocene to the north. Um, if you go down to Dorset, if you go to sort of Swanage or Lulworth Cove, you have the bottom section. You have the Jurassic into the Cretaceous,
That's right.
but you don't get that northern
Yeah,
portion of it. And it's just it's unique in the fact that it's very contained as well.
yeah,
It's in
yeah,
a very small area.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, because I mean, really, what people like say, we're talking about the uplift,
mm,
and basically, the further, let me guess right again, the further south east you go, usually the younger the rocks become in the British Isles, and the further northwest you
yeah,
go, the more older the rocks become. So that's why you get the Jurassic outcropping in Dorset
yeah,
and outcropping
mm,
in Yorkshire, because it kind of comes down in a kind of a zigzag pattern. And this,
yeah.
the further north you go into the Triassic, and then into the
Mm,
Carboniferous, where you get all the coal fields. But then further south you come, down through the Cretaceous, through the chalk, and then you get into the Isle of Wight and the younger material, which is where you find all the
yeah,
mammals you find on the islands as well.
yeah.
What are the most common fossils you find in the two areas? You know, you get obviously the Cretaceous, you get dinosaurs.
Doors, yeah,
How many times we can say dinosaurs in this episode?
yeah.
But then obviously you get the Eocene material. So what are the most common fossils you find there?
So in the Eocene, the most common thing you'll find are bits of turtle. So we have the two different types. We have a soft shell turtle called Trionyx, which has got
Yeah,
lots of bumps all over its shell. And then you have the hard shell turtle called Emis, which is smooth shell. And it's kind of, if you go to Boldon or Yarmouth, anywhere like that, you will find bits of turtle
yeah, and
shell.
that's more in
They're
the
probably north,
northwest
yeah.
northwest area
Northwest, yeah.
of the island.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
you get them over at Bembridge, so on the northeast as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
All the way along.
yeah,
Some bits are better than others because of
yeah,
the
yeah.
amount of erosion. Um,
What other
they're
things
the
can you
most common. You
find
get
in the
bits of
Eocene then?
alligator. Pardon?
What other things can you find in the Eocene?
Bits of alligator, so the alligator teeth and
Yeah,
the bits of armor or the osteoderms, and then we get the early mammals. So it's quite common if you're at Boldner and Hampstead to pick up Bothriodon teeth. So from these sort of pig-like mammals, and they are quite big. They're quite sizable. And I saw someone the other day I got sent photos of someone that picked up an early rhino
Oh,
toe
yeah.
bone,
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was massive.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
really,
So these
when I
these
first
weren't
saw the
these
photos,
weren't
I
like
thought it was
shrew-like creatures. These
no,
were very, very
yeah,
quite large creatures that were
oh yeah,
roaming around at that time.
yeah. Think sort of pony, horse-sized animals. Quite
Yeah.
sizable creatures.
Yeah, yeah.
And this rhino one, I thought when I first saw the photos, I thought it was dinosaur.
Right, okay, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they went, "Oh, I found it at Boulder." I was like, "Oh, right,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
not a
Yeah.
dinosaur then."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen
So,
quite a few pieces from that area, mainly the mammalian material, um,
yeah,
in the past, and yeah, it's quite sizable. Some nice canines and jaw
yeah,
sections and a few
mm,
limb bones and toe bones and things like that. Yeah, and then
yeah,
obviously further down you get into the Cretaceous.
yeah.
So
So
then you get
you go
into
dinosaurs, and
dinosaurs.
well, you start off with ammonites. So yeah, Isle of
Yeah,
Wight's very famous for mid to late Cretaceous ammonites. So you get ones from the chalk,
yeah,
um, and then you get the big Trypaeum, these monster ammonites down Whale Chine,
yeah.
um,
And
and then
those particular ammonites, they're quite unusual because they're what's called heteromorph ammonites, aren't they? So
yeah,
they're not actually the classic coiled snake
no,
that everybody sees. They've actually
yeah,
started in the Cretaceous. Over a period of time, the ammonites started to unfurl. So you get an
yeah,
awful lot of rich diversity in the Cretaceous for
yeah,
ammonite fauna that have started. They've still got the center of gravity, but then they start
mm,
uncoiling, and
yeah,
having very elaborate shapes. I know there's
yeah,
one of a lot of I know an awful lot of ammonite collectors, and one of their favorite ones is
mm,
one called Nipponites from Japan, which is basically
yeah.
just a ball of it's not
Oh
actually
yeah,
centric. It's
no,
just like a ball of spaghetti. That's the
yeah,
best way to describe it, like a ball of
yeah.
spaghetti. The way that
They do,
it's curled round,
yeah,
and the Trypaeum is one of these ones that have started
yeah,
to unfurl. So you get like a
yeah.
big, you get a kind of a coiled area, but then it starts unfurling a little bit. So it looks like
Yeah,
almost like a trumpet, I guess, a
sort of,
trombone,
yeah,
a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. The Trypaeums aren't that extreme in it. They're just starting out, I think,
yeah, yeah.
trying the unfurling thing, and then you get Australiceras, which is a little bit higher up, and that's it. I guess it looks like a G is the
Yes,
best way I can
yeah, yeah,
describe it.
yeah, yeah,
Lowercase g, and they're really lovely. And they don't grow that. They don't get that big, so they're quite nice to collect because they're like
yeah,
fit in your rucksack quite well.
yeah.
Um, and then below that is where you get the dinosaurs.
Yes,
So
yeah,
the
yeah,
exciting
and
things.
obviously we'll probably go into a lot more in that. I would have thought.
Yeah.
So what kind of dinosaurs do for those who don't know that dinosaurs exist in the UK and don't exist on the Isle of Wight?
Yeah.
What kind? Obviously, you're talking to somebody that
Yeah.
does know what is there, but
Yeah.
for those people that are out there that are listening to the podcast or watching
Mm.
the podcast, what kind of dinosaurs do you find on the Isle of Wight?
So we get a bit of everything. The most common are the iguanodontids. So they're big herbivorous dinosaurs. Mostly walked on two legs, but they could walk on all fours if needed with like a big horse-like head.
Yeah,
And they vary from 4 meters long to possibly 12 meters long.
yeah, wow,
They
yeah.
were sort of the
They weren't
cattle
small.
of the dinosaur world.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
cattle of dinosaurs. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
And we've had
they were the plant eaters.
yeah. And then we have the ones with the long necks and tails like Brachiosaurus and Diplodocus, like Dippy at the Natural History Museum. They're not as common, and
No,
we think probably because they were migrating through rather than living here all the time.
right, yeah, yeah, okay.
That's one explanation for them, their skeletons not being as numerous. Um, and we have the ankylosaurs, so we have a little dinosaur called Polacanthus, which is the one covered in spikes.
Which
They were
actually
basically
was one of the first
yeah.
dinosaurs to be described,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah. It's got like a big solid bone shield over its hip region called a sacral shield, and that was found in the 1800s. And it's the most beautiful fossil, I think, of a dinosaur from the island because it's got lots of bumps in it, and it's almost like they're arranged like a flower pattern.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's so stunning.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and they would have been short little legs, big barrel body, so they had a very low center of gravity, so they're hard to flip over,
Yeah, yeah,
covered in
yeah,
big spikes.
yeah. Well, I mean, if somebody
Yeah,
can imagine what an armadillo looks like, but as a dinosaur, that's
yeah,
kind
with
of what we probably imagine what they could be look like.
yeah. They would have fought back, they
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
weren't
they had,
running away.
did they have a big club at the end of the tail as well?
No,
Those
so
ones,
they
or
it
what
the
did they have
that's
something or
sort
other? Did they have something?
they we think they might have had spikes or little spines going down their tail. So that sort of dinosaur they split into two. So you have like the
Right.
ankylosaurs that have the club, and
Yeah.
then I think they're called nodosaurs that
Yeah,
they don't
Nosophagus.
have
Yeah,
the club;
that's
they have
right. Yeah,
spikes
yeah,
instead.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. So they
yeah, we
haven't
have
developed the
those, and
club at the
then
end, but they probably
yeah,
had some kind of,
yeah,
well, I mean, the armor plating suggests that
yeah,
obviously they were being predated on a lot.
did on yeah.
So I'm presuming we also get meat-eating dinosaurs on the island as well.
Yes. They're, not as common, they're the rarity that everyone wants to find, and it's just how food chains work, you have less predators
Absolutely.
to the herbivores.
Absolutely.
Our
I mean,
big one on the island
in
currently
any
is
geological
yeah,
outcrop, you will
yeah,
you'll get the most common thing,
mm,
like the iguanodontids.
yeah,
But then obviously the things that are fed on those things will
mm,
be of
yeah,
less numeracy anyway in
yeah,
any deposit.
yeah. We think we've got evidence of the carnivores here, the theropod dinosaurs being quite diverse, but the biggest one known is currently near Venator.
Yeah,
It was initially discovered back in, I think it was in the 80s.
yeah.
The
Unfortunately, I'm
bones
old enough
mixed
to
in with an
remember that.
iguanodon.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And the skeleton they got is a teenager, and it's
Oh right, gosh.
about 6 meters long.
Oh
So it's
wow,
not a fully grown
wow.
adult. And
Yeah.
there's teeth that have been found that suggest it gets a lot bigger. And there's some very big teeth out there.
So that would have
And then
looked,
we,
for those
yeah,
out there, it looked a bit like well, we're going to have to say it looks like a T-Rex, but with longer
yeah,
arms
yeah,
and longer legs.
yes.
Or I suppose the children out there will probably know what an Allosaurus looks like.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it's more closely related to Allosaurus than it
yeah.
would be T-Rex. Is that right?
Yeah. So yeah, it was a very gracile animal, very narrow skull, blade-like teeth. It had been
Yeah.
chasing after its food. That something you wouldn't want to encounter, I don't think.
No, no, absolutely not. No.
And then we have in the last few years, well, a few years ago, there was two new Spinosaurs found on the island. So
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
semi-aquatic dinosaurs. Everyone loves Spinosaurus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
famous one from Africa. So we've got the relatives of that here. One's called Ceratoseucops and the other one's called Reparo-Venator.
'Cause, I mean,
And they've
before that, they were all just all
yeah,
named, baryonyx, weren't they?
baryonyx. Yeah,
But baryonyx was
yeah,
only found in well, but
yeah,
the one, named
Sussex.
species was actually found in
Yeah,
smokejacks, which is in the
yeah,
Sussex area.
yeah,
So for a long time, they thought they
mm,
were just all the same thing, but then obviously,
yeah,
the science has evolved to the point where we were able to
yeah,
distinguish a bit more about those, and we've
yeah.
got these two new
Um,
species.
Yeah, because we're slightly younger than the Sussex rocks, so
Yeah.
we've got a few million years on them, which is enough for dinosaurs to evolve.
Yes, absolutely, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and they've got two partial skulls. They've got the back of the skull, the brain
yeah,
case, the
yeah,
snouts, and they are stunning. They had very long. Oh, they almost look like crocodiles. Long crocodilian-like snouts,
yeah.
and they would have been quite sizable as well. But again, it's a very they've got the skulls and they've got one tail, but they're kind of missing the bit in between.
Between, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We tend to find that
uh,
with skeletons,
yeah,
particularly when they die, there's certain bone elements which will,
mm,
drift away quicker than others, which is
mm,
unbelievably, but, yeah, there's certain elements that
yeah,
float away and get
yeah,
discarded very, very quickly. Uh,
mm,
and, obviously particularly marine environments, it's the skull that drops off the animal
mm,
the first. So that's why you find an awful lot of marine reptiles that have got no heads, because the head is
yeah,
actually the first thing that falls off and gets
yeah,
drifted away, separate from the body. And that's why
yeah,
you get fragmentary, partial
yeah.
skeletons,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And also, like, the environment on the island when the dinosaurs were here was a big river floodplain.
Yeah.
So they weren't dying and getting buried here, not necessarily. They might have been carried down the
Carried,
river
washed
some
away.
distance, so bits are falling off,
Yeah,
as they
yeah,
come
yeah.
down.
So they
Um,
would have like floated in the waters, and
yeah,
then bits would be falling off, and then
falling off, yeah,
certain elements would then get thrown down the rivers quicker than others,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
accumulated in areas. Um,
mm,
so they're like sorted out. The bones will be then sorted out as it floats down
yeah,
the river, and then accumulate. And that's why you
mm,
find certain bones in certain areas and certain bones in different areas.
yeah. And we've got evidence of like big log jams here. We get the like almost complete trees coming out of the cliffs, and
Right. Yeah.
quite often where you get the beds with the big trees is where you find the more complete dinosaur skeletons.
All right.
So
So
it's like
basically
they're getting caught.
the log has fallen into
Mm,
the river, got stuck
yeah,
somehow, and then everything's washed up against it.
instead, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you see that today in when you look in storm when there's been a storm or a flooding, everything gets caught up against those
Yeah,
big
yeah,
logs.
and to be fair,
Um,
you can see that you can also see that in the Jurassic Rock and in the
yeah,
Cretaceous rock, but like you say, you can also see that in modern day environment as
yeah,
well. That is still
yeah.
occurring. Yeah,
Yeah, because I was in Texas and we were down these creeks and they'd had really heavy rains and a lot of flooding. And there was one bit where there was like a dead, like a raccoon, a dead
yeah, yeah,
raccoon stuck on the branches and an armadillo thing. And I was thinking, oh, that's actually really cool because that's what happened with our dinosaurs.
yeah. Well, that's
Um,
a future
yeah,
fossil. It's a future fossil.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
um,
Because I mean, we both have studied a particular
mm,
part of paleontology called taphonomy,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is the study of how the fossils actually
mm,
from the point of dying, or even before, slightly before that,
mm,
to then you finding it, everything that's occurred to that particular fossil in that time frame.
yeah,
I find it fascinating because there's a
yeah,
whole snapshot of the history of the
mm,
actual fossil, that's taken over all that time. Like for
yeah,
instance, I mean, when I was studying, I actually had a lot of books on skeletons in the savannah
mm,
and how they
yeah,
decayed. There'll
mm,
be a dead gazelle in the
yeah,
savannah, and it was actually this book I had actually had time shots of it
yeah,
decomposing. I mean, it's
yeah,
kind of sick,
yeah,
I know, but it showed
yeah,
you what happened to it and the
mm,
creatures that came and took bits away,
yeah,
uh, and and um, and what happened to it before it then got buried.
mm,
And that's probably what's
yeah.
happening with the dinosaurs.
Oh, yeah.
Bits are falling off of it. There might be
Mm,
other carnivores or something that,
yeah.
crocodiles or whatever that are then taking other bits away,
Mm,
I find that particularly fascinating with fossils
yeah,
is actually what between it dying and actually you finding
yeah,
it. There's a lot of
yeah,
things that can happen to a fossil, and the
yeah.
likelihood of it actually fossilizing in the first place is
Mm,
statistically amazing, I find.
yeah.
To then you finding it, it's up there
Mm,
with a lottery or
yeah,
even a meteorite impact.
yeah.
It's unbelievably impossible for it to
Mm,
occur, but it does occur in the right circumstances, and the Isle of Wight is one of those places.
yeah. And I've got one cool thing about some of the bones on the island that come from not the plant debris beds where you get the nice black bone that's buried very quickly
Yeah, yeah.
from like the red beds and things. Some of those bones have got these massive borings in them. So it's like
All right, so
domestic beetles have
yeah,
actually bought like they're going through and they've just encountered the bone and they've just carried on their boring
yeah, yeah,
through the bone. And then you get these vertebrae that have massive holes through them, caused by we think the domestic beetle type things.
yeah, yeah, so
So
it
that's
must have
another
been
thing
sat
is that
around for quite a while for it
yeah,
to have done that.
mm,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, and
interesting.
it's evidence of also like the domestic beetles being there because they're not getting preserved in the fossil record.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So you can interpret
because the soft
seeing what's
parts.
happening to the bones, the bite marks on them. Yeah,
Yeah, the soft
it's
parts aren't being
filling in
preserved.
other gaps. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I mean,
yeah,
it's fascinating. I mean, that's why it's been like a detective, isn't it? It's been like trying to be a detective.
yeah,
You can find a fossil, but then how did it get there? How did it
yeah,
actually be where you found it?
Mm.
Yeah, sure, it lived millions of years ago. It lived in a certain way, but then how did it then arrive in the place that
Wait.
you found it is I find
Yeah.
one of the most fascinating parts of paleontology myself. Um, because
Yeah.
you're kind of like trying to be a time traveler, I guess.
Proper. Yeah.
If anybody knows me quite well, they know I like watching a lot of interesting YouTube videos on such
Yeah.
things. So
Yeah.
it's the closest thing I get is looking at fossils and think and trying to imagine what it was like back in
Yeah.
that period of time.
Well, yeah. Because I'm really into dinosaur footprints at the moment.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
got in doing my PhD, and there's a trackway out at Compton out on the ledges. It's quite a famous one, and there's a new one appearing on the ledge underneath, and you can see it's just a dinosaur stood there, and it
Right.
would have
Okay.
been stood on the bank of the river. And I always think, like, what was it doing? Just stood there.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was
Yeah.
it seeing?
Yeah.
Things like that. And my goal is to meet someone who's very good at CGI and have this, like, where they do a video where it pans
Oh,
around and then it goes back into the
like a VR
Cretaceous,
type
like,
thing where you can look through the eyes
yeah,
of the dinosaur and see what it
yeah,
might
see
have
what
been
it's
seeing.
looking at.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you can build up, you can go, well, that's where the river was, and the cliffs over there wouldn't have been
Yeah,
there, and
and
you can get a
you
gist of
got
what
the
was,
evidence of the plants as
yeah,
well that were around at the time,
yeah,
in these log jams. So you've got the evidence of the
mm,
paleoecology at the time.
yeah,
So you know what kind of, um, you know what wasn't around, and you also know what
yeah,
was around.
was
So
around,
you know you
yes,
can build up very very quickly a
mm,
snapshot of the paleoecology at
yeah,
the time. So like ferns and mainly ginkgos and
yeah, and
magnolias,
horsetails were quite common, and
horsetail,
yeah, tails, and yeah,
and such like. And then you know
mm,
that it was these rivers. You know vaguely where
yeah,
those rivers are and which way they're
yeah,
going because you've got the geology.
mm,
Uh, and then yeah, you've got this dinosaur stood there doing something.
yeah,
Who knows what? You know, we can
well, yeah,
speculate. We can speculate. You know, was it there having a toilet stop? Was it there having a drink?
yes,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I find things like footprints fascinating as well because
mm,
it's a snapshot of the
oh yeah,
behavior of those animals.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's something you would never get from the skeleton.
no,
You know,
absolutely, absolutely.
it's
You get behavior.
yeah,
You can get speed. You can
mm,
even skin impressions as well.
yeah. And what
Um,
I like is how, like, what I'm really interested in is how the foot interacts with the sediment. So it's telling you what the dinosaur was
right.
walking on at the time.
Yes.
So more like, was it marshy? Was it hard sand? You
Yeah.
can build up a little picture of that specific area at that moment in
Yeah.
time.
Because I mean, we both
Um,
take groups on the beach and what have you,
mm,
and obviously I take them in the Yorkshire area and show them dinosaur
yeah,
footprints as well. And I kind of liken it to particularly in the Yorkshire area because it's very very sandy. I
mm,
basically say, you know, look, we've just walked over the sandy beach just here, and that's effectively what
yeah,
a dinosaur did. Walked over the
yeah,
beach,
mm,
compacted its foot into the sand,
yeah,
displaced that
yeah,
weight through the sand, and that's basically what you're looking at.
yeah. And there's so many on the island that they're just like wiggles in the cliff. They're not
Yes. Yeah.
obvious
Yeah. Yeah.
footprints, and people walk past them all the time.
Yeah.
And I just think it's the magic of being able to stand or put your finger on the exact surface a dinosaur walked over once.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's yeah,
Yeah.
it's really magical.
Yeah.
I
So I
I
mean,
always think, what was it doing? And
with the footprints, Megan, on the
mm,
island, do you get? I know you get iguanodontid footprints from the
yeah,
island. What other type of footprints do you get there? Out of interest.
all of them. We get
Oh, right.
big,
Okay.
we get theropod footprints. We get the sauropod footprints. There's a really nice one down at Compton at the moment, a very big foot cast that's on a, like, the clay's eroded away, so it's on like this big pedestal. It's like a big
Yeah.
rock on a pedestal. We get the ankylosaur footprints as well. There's tiny little footprints that are only like 5 centimeters, ten
All right. Yeah.
centimeters
Yeah.
long, and then you get ones that are a meter or so long. So we have
All right. Gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
good. Great. Yeah.
yeah,
No, 'cause I find it really fascinating about it's not just about the more common thing with fossils,
mm,
these are the common things you find. But I also like the ecology that's around it. So, like, for
yeah,
instance, up here, I quite like finding gastropods
yeah,
and things that were around
mm,
when the ammonites were around,
yeah,
like shrimps and lobsters and things like
yeah,
that. And down there, it'd be interesting to know, I'd find it interesting for the more smaller creatures, that you're
yeah,
finding, because I think there's been quite a few, mammalian creatures found in the
yeah.
Cretaceous as well.
Um,
So these were probably
yeah, so they've
flu-like creatures that
yeah,
were around
mm,
between the feet of dinosaurs, and they
yeah,
would have been one of our first earliest ancestors.
yeah. They're mostly found because they're so small. They're like a millimeter and smaller.
Yeah.
Hard to spot with
Yeah.
the naked eye. They're found through sieving the
Yeah.
clay, so taking buckets away and sieving it. But yeah, we've got lots of different mammals. We've got lizards, frogs. I think salamanders, like some other sort of amphibian-y things. Lots of fish,
Yeah.
sharks.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow. Yeah.
everything else.
Yeah. Well, no,
Just found through
I mean,
sieving. Yeah,
that adds to
yeah,
the overall picture of what was happening at the
mm,
time, isn't it?
yeah,
We've got a whole snapshot of all different
yeah,
creatures there, not just the showstoppers, the
yeah.
dinosaurs, but you've got also things that were living beside those creatures at the
Mm.
same time. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
fascinating.
and, some beds you get amber as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you do. Yeah.
It's not, amazingly common, but it does have, the occasional insect in, so there's been a
Wow.
spider found, there's been some, like, flies and things like that, so that's another, like, gap in the
Yeah.
window sort of
So,
being filled in about the
effectively, it's like Jurassic Park.
yeah. Yeah.
The Cretaceous Jurassic Park down in the Isle of Wight, and
Yes. Yeah.
that's what it draws a lot of people to the area, is the fact that
Mm.
you've got such a diverse, amount of fossils. You've got a great museum over there
Yeah.
showing all that life as well
Yeah.
in the Dinosaur Isle Museum. Um,
Yeah.
and you've got people like yourself who can take people out
Mm.
on the tours and show them, what they might be looking for,
Mm.
and in a safe and responsible manner, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great island. Unfortunately, because of where I live, it's not somewhere
Yeah.
I visit that often, but I do like
No.
it. I do like coming down when I get the opportunity. Have you brought any fossils to show us today, or
Yes, I've got a few. So I'll start with, probably this one, which you might recognise. So
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
um, dinosaur vertebrae. So
Yeah, a
it's
dinosaur vertebrae, and that is, roughly about, looks a
yeah,
bit from the picture, it kind of, for those who are not there, it kind of looks like
yeah,
a small, log, as such,
yeah.
but with a big neural spine on it,
It's
and the
fine.
hole at
Yeah,
the top is where the spinal cord would go through.
yeah,
And then the ribs would attach on the top of that to the
yeah,
rest of the beast. So that's a backbone from one of these, by the looks of it, iguanodontid, by the looks of it.
yeah, yeah. Not sure which one because I
Right.
found this down at Yaveland, um,
And
and it was quite cool because I
did you find the fossil like that, or was it covered in rock
no.
or mud or
No, so it was in a big nodge. It was all covered in rock, and I was down there with my head torch because low tide was at like 8 at night in the winter, and I had been told that the beach had all the sand had gone and it was really good down there. So I headed down and I saw this vertebrae-shaped rock,
yeah,
and I thought, oh, I'll take it just in case. I couldn't see any bone. I'll
yeah, yeah.
take it back with me. We'll see. And I chipped a bit off the side, and I could see the bone, and there's the whole vertebrae was in there, which my dad had
Wow.
kindly prepared for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
And
yeah, so
that
I was
preparation,
very happy with
is
that
that
one.
by, mechanical means, so air chisels, and then at the
Air
end, air
chisels and
abrasive?
air abrasives, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, so because it's a hard, we have quite a few of the bones have this, we call it a siderite, so it's like an iron carbonate concretion, and it's
yeah.
incredibly hard.
Yeah,
You can't really dissolve it
and
away or
you
anything. So
yeah, so more like almost like a metal coating effectively, isn't it?
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
ve incredibly difficult to
um,
remove,
yeah,
And a lot of the bones, some of the not everything, not all the bones, but some of the bones are impregnated with iron ores, or iron sulfides
Yeah,
anyway. So you will know them
yeah,
as pyrite, or
yeah,
iron porites, fool's gold. So sometimes it's very, very heavy when you pick them up as well. They're not very, very light, are they? When you find them,
no,
they're very, very dense when you
yeah,
find the bones. And then obviously sometimes you might find a limb bone, but you might find like part of it on one part of the beach and
yeah,
the other part's further down the beach,
yeah,
and they fit perfectly
yeah,
together.
yeah,
And that's how you piece them all together. Um,
yeah.
or if you're very, very lucky, you might find part of a dinosaur.
Yeah, yeah, it happens occasionally, but quite often on the island because of the nature of our coastline, um, it's eroding all the time. We have these big landslips.
Yeah.
So, like me and my dad had collected a partial dinosaur skeleton, and the issue was it came out of this big landslide. So the dinosaur probably was complete in the cliff,
Yes.
and then as the rocks came down in this big landslip, it was ripped apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have like the tibia, one of the lower limb bones. It was in like 20 or 30 chunks,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and we had to click it all back together, and it took several years to get as much as we did. But occasionally,
And in that time, parts of it could have been
yeah.
eroded by the sea and taken away.
Yeah, I know that we probably missed some. I know that other collectors got some other bits of it as well. That's another thing. So it's very difficult in that situation to get the whole skeleton out. But occasionally, there was a case with the new dinosaur that was recently named called Comptonatus. That was found. There was a few bones on the beach
Yeah.
that a guy called Nick Chase had picked up, and he thought, well, this is coming from somewhere. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very fresh.
Yeah.
So he went up the cliff and he found it at the top of the cliff. So they organised a dig to get the skeleton out, and that's now I think the most complete skeleton in the UK of a dinosaur.
Yeah.
But there was a limb bone that had a chunk missing, and they looked and looked, and it wasn't there. And then I think a couple of years later, Jeremy, who works on the iguanodons, he went down the beach and he found it,
Wow. Wow. And it
and
fits
it clicked
perfectly.
together.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Wow. Amazing.
yeah,
That is I mean, that is incredible. Yeah, I mean, I've had stories myself
yeah,
of similar things, it's like months later or like I say,
yeah,
years later, they found the other bit. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
incredible. For those who, are interested in coming down fossil collecting
Mm,
down to the Isle of Wight, what are the rules about finding something? I mean, obviously, if you find something in the cliff, I'm presuming that that is not for you to dig out. I'm presuming that then you
no,
need to contact somebody,
yeah,
and then a team will then come in, of specialists, and
mm,
then dig that out. And then obviously,
yeah,
uh, I'm presuming that the landowner gives you permission to do that.
yeah.
So
So,
just explain all that process
yeah.
to everybody.
So if it's loose on the foreshore, it's fair game
Yeah.
essentially. And if it's loose boulders on the beach, you can break open those loose boulders and get the fossils out, as long as it's not the dinosaur foot casts,
Yes.
which people often mistake. They think there's a foot inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I'm not
The
sure
foot bones
why.
won't be inside.
Um,
No.
no. But loose on the beach is fine. But if it's in the cliff, you have the best thing to do is to contact Dinosaur Isle.
Yes.
Because they know who owns the land, they know how to handle that. They'll come down and assess what you found. They've got some volunteers that are very proactive and that sort of thing. So they can come down straight away, see what you found. If things need to be removed straight away, that is possible.
Yeah.
But if it needs a whole excavation, the landowner has to be asked. Most of it is National Trust,
Okay.
and they are very good.
Yeah.
They have with liaising with, and they kind of want things to be saved.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
very good in that
Yeah.
respect. And Natural England, you need to get permission from them because it's a triple SI the whole way along, so a
Yes. Yeah.
site of special scientific interest.
That's right. Yeah.
So, but it's kind of I haven't heard of many issues arising if you've gone through the correct channels.
Yes.
But it's very much like my goal is to sort of raise awareness of what we have here and just try and keep as many dinosaur skeletons together, and then in museums where it's accessible for everyone,
Yeah. Yeah.
because this
And
is
do you have a similar recording scheme to, the Dorset recording scheme? in Jurassic. They have a recording scheme,
No,
don't they? So if you find something,
yeah,
do you have a no? You don't have a similar one in the Isle of Wight.
no, we kind of have,
Just
if
contact
you
the museum
yeah.
and make them aware of what you have
Have,
effectively.
yeah. Yeah, they have their records. They have a big file with everything in that's been brought in and things like that. But there isn't an official recording scheme here. And it's one of these things that it can be a touchy subject with collectors, and all this.
Yeah.
But personally, I think it would be a really good thing for the island to have. Just a recording scheme. You don't have to hand over anything or anything like that. But because of the nature of our fossils here, where you get an ammonite out, you have the whole thing, job's done,
Yeah, yeah,
But with dinosaur skeletons, there's hundreds of bones in the skeleton.
yeah.
And there is cases where that so and so's got those bits, someone else has got those bits have been sold, those bits have gone. And I think having a recording scheme, it will be great to keep track of who's got what, who's
I
found
mean,
what and where.
particularly of those bits which are of scientific importance. I mean,
Yeah.
there's not
Yeah.
all the bones you find are of
No.
scientific importance.
No.
But it's recognizing which bits are, and the only way to do that is if you do find a bone, then obviously take it to the museum and get it
Yeah.
looked at first, and then
Yeah.
that person will be able to say, I think this is unusual. I've never seen it
Yeah.
before. Therefore, this needs to
Mm.
go through this channel or this channel.
Yeah.
Um, and I've been part
Mm.
of a lot of things like that in the past. I remember
Yeah.
one day. I mean, he'll understand when I talk about it. He'll
Mm.
probably be watching this podcast.
Yeah.
But a guy called Nick Hannigan came in to my
Yeah.
shop once, and he plonked this bit of rock in front of me, and he said, "I found this in South Wales. Do you know what it is?"
Mm.
He said, "I don't think it's marine reptile." And I said, "I know exactly what that
Yeah.
is." I said, "That's a theropod.
Mm.
I think that's
Yeah.
theropod bones." And I said, "Right, if you found it in South," he said, "Oh yeah, I've got most of it." I said, "You've got most of it?"
Mm.
I said, "Right, okay, right. Here's the
Yeah.
details of the people you need to go and talk to because this
Mm.
is scientifically important."
Yeah.
And it's having those kind of in certain areas of the world
Mm.
or the country mainly where there's lots of fossils, having a point of contact where somebody can go to see an expert
Yeah.
to say, look, just cast your eyes over this. Is this having any importance? And
Yeah.
that's it, I'm showing my age now, but in the
Mm.
30 odd years I've been in doing what I'm doing,
Mm.
that's happened at least three times. At least
Yeah.
three times that somebody's put something in front of me
Mm.
and said, "What is it, Byron?" And I've gone, "Well, I know what it is, and I think
Yeah.
you need to talk to these people over here."
Yeah.
Um, and those have ended up being
Yeah.
scientifically important specimens
Mm.
and
Yeah. 'Cause
recorded as scientific papers as well.
yeah.
Um, and that would not happen if they just went into
Mm.
somebody's collection. But if somebody
Yeah.
sees them and says, look, no, these
Mm.
are important, you need to go and
Yeah.
it's having that chain of command, I guess,
Yeah.
from beachcombing
Mm.
to getting to the right person to do that research.
Yeah. Because we've had it on the island where I've seen things where I'm going, oh god, that's actually, I know that's a bit of that or that. But one time I was around my friend's house and he went, I do you know what this is? I know it's pterosaur, but I got it as payment for doing some preparation. And I looked at it, and at the time my fellow student in the same office had been working on pterosaur beaks from
Wow.
Morocco,
Yeah.
and I've been looking at them and I recognise this thing instantly, and I said, "It's a pterosaur. I know it's a pterosaur beak, 100%." And I looked at it again, and it had like a bit of an upturn, and I was like, "This. The only thing this can be is like a tapejarid pterosaur.
Right.
These
Okay.
were only known at the
The
time on
Tapajara
record
had
from South
the big
America.
crests on the
Big
back, didn't they? They had a
crest,
big crest on the
yeah,
top of the head.
no teeth, short little beak."
Yeah.
And I was like, I know. And then I was like, got some photos, sent it to my friends, and I was like, is this what I think it is?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a theory. I just want, rather than telling you what I think it is, I want you to make your own assessment. And they were like, 100% it is. So that was Mick who had it. He was very happy to be an author on the paper and donate it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's now a new pterosaur called Whitea.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
a
Great. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
no,
It's not
that's
every day
exactly it.
that when you go for coffee,
It's
there's a new pterosaur, but
it's having accessibility to those particular specimens, isn't it? Or just knowing about them
yeah.
at least.
Mm,
Not everything is of scientific importance. If you find
no,
an ammonite on the beach, a DAC or whatever, it's not going to be of scientific importance. But if
no.
you find a complete skeleton of an ichthyosaur,
Mm,
that's a different kind of kettle of fish. That even might
yeah,
not be of scientific value, but
yeah,
that's the kind of thing that needs to be told to somebody in a museum that
yeah,
you've got it, so that then
yeah.
somebody like Dean Lomax or somebody can then go
Mm,
and look at it in person and then make sure that it is of something of importance. And I know that is a friend of mine. He did come in with
mm,
some remains. I can't say too much at the minute, but it came
yeah,
in with remains of an ichthyosaur in a specific place, and that
yeah,
that will turn out to be a new species.
yeah.
I can't say too much more about that at the
No,
moment because it's been written up. But
no, but it,
it's having those points of contact.
yeah,
Like they've got Dinosaur Isle on the Isle of
yeah,
Wight. We've got the Whitby Museum.
mm,
Although the Whitby Museum usually tells people to come and see me, obviously. But
yeah,
uh, but uh, but yeah, so I get obviously a lot of contact through there. But having these points of contact, and
mm,
then down in Dorset, they've got the Charmouth Heritage Centre where you can take
mm,
things in to get them looked over once you found it as well.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean that kind of sequence of events where you can take it from like an
mm,
amateur status and then go through the process to get to where you need to be with the scientist
yeah,
to the point where yeah it might be a new species
mm,
and something new to science. That's very
yeah,
important, I think.
yeah. There's a lot of collectors on the island that they're very educated people. They know exactly what they're
Oh yeah,
finding. You know the
yeah,
importance of it,
yeah,
and they spend hours of their lives preparing and researching and everything. Um, but they've donated bits to the museum, but maybe not all of their stuff. But it's in their will that it's going to the
yes,
museum.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I
And
know that some
those
academics are very
people
angry.
probably, I think,
Yeah,
sometimes know more
yeah,
than the academics.
yeah,
Um, you
yeah.
know, um,
Um,
I know another gentleman in the Netherlands where he gets sent ice age bones or
mm,
bones that are found,
yeah,
and he identifies them for them
mm,
for the police of all things to
yeah,
make sure that they are of a certain age and not like
yeah,
a fisherman
mm,
um,
yeah,
that sadly passed away. So there is a lot of
yeah,
amateur collectors out there
mm,
that know their stuff. Absolutely,
yeah, yeah. And they're far more experienced than any because they have the time to go down, fossil
absolutely,
collect,
yeah,
get to know the rocks and everything. Um,
and they've got the
and
practical experience as well
yes,
of
and they
actually
and their preparation is amazing.
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely,
and they really care about the fossils. You know, they keep on top of their stopping pyrite rot and all of this. Um, and a lot of them on the island say, well, I'm enjoying it now. I'm preparing all of this stuff, I'm doing, and it's going to the museum. It's in my will and it's definitely go there. And it gets a few academics really quite upset, but I kind of think it's been in the ground for 130 million years.
yeah,
It's not actually going to hurt waiting another 20 or 30 years for someone to study it.
no,
You know that it's
no,
secure,
no,
and you know it's going
no,
to go there
no.
eventually.
I mean,
It's just for the next generation to look at.
obviously, my thoughts on it probably,
Mm. Yeah.
but I think if there's an accession number
Mm.
related to a museum on a piece that's in your collection. I don't see what the problem is with that being in your collection until you um,
Mm.
are no longer here,
Yeah.
and then that then go to a museum.
Mm.
But I know an awful lot of horror stories as well where these items have gone to museums and they've gone in a
Yeah.
cupboard, never to be seen again until 50
Mm.
years later, and then somebody looks in a cupboard and goes, "What's this then?" And then it turns out to
Yeah.
be a very important specimen, and
Yeah.
then it gets recorded. So
Yeah.
there is a balance, I think, between both
Oh yeah.
sides of the
Yeah.
fence, I think, and
Yeah.
and a happy working relationship between
Yeah.
uh, academia and amateurs
Mm.
is I think personally the way forward.
Yeah.
Some people might not agree with that opinion, um,
Yeah.
but I think for the betterment of the science, there's an
Mm.
awful lot of amateur people that do know their stuff and
Yeah.
who are not recognised. And
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
and there's one on your island that you know and I know
yeah.
that is exactly that. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's a whole debate there, Megan, isn't there?
Yeah,
We won't
there
get
is.
into it in this podcast, but there is a debate
No.
there. But I personally think a better working relationship between all parties would be the way
Mm.
forward, and educating people is the way forward. I think as well. You know, the
Yeah.
science, the science
Yeah.
communication side of it is very
Yeah.
important. It's
Mm.
all very well and good. You've got a museum full of stuff, but not actually involving the greater populace within those things
Yeah.
is again
Yeah.
detrimental.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say on the island, all the dinosaurs found are found by amateurs
Yes,
or fossil hunters or
yes,
fossil collectors or
yes,
the general public on holiday.
yes,
You
yes,
know, without them, we wouldn't have a
yes.
dinosaur museum.
Well, if you look
Yeah.
at, the history of fossils, I would
Yeah.
say that most of the most important specimens ever
Mm.
found, have all been found by amateur collectors.
Yeah.
Even Archaeopteryx was found by an amateur
Yeah.
collector. Mary
Yeah.
Anning wasn't an
Yeah.
academic, she was an amateur
No.
collector. And but then they were then back then there was a process involved in then
Mm.
bringing it from the from the from that from the amateur world
Mm.
into the scientific community, and it's that
Yeah.
happy working relationship between the
Yeah.
two which is the way forward in the future. Note to all young paleontologists out there.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
But no, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, we've gone through all this list of questions I've got for
Yeah.
you. We've gone the amount of questions we've gone through, and I've not even asked you them is
Yeah.
amazing, really. Um, if people are coming to the Isle of Wight, what advice would you give them? And is there any basic kit they would need, or how do they start? Is there any rules that they need to know about? Things like that.
There's not necessarily any kit that you need. It's not like you shouldn't be hammering rocks or anything on most of the beaches. So I just recommend a bag to put your fossils in.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
most of the
yeah.
best fossils you'll ever found are just going to be lying there, and
Oh,
you just put them in the bag,
oh yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah. I call it lazy fossil collecting.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
can't
no, I mean, you still got to
yeah.
have a very good pair of eyes
Yeah. Yeah.
to spot the fossils in the first place, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's that kind of pattern recognition when
Mm,
you're on the beach,
yeah.
looking at the
I
right
would say
stones.
familiarize yourself with what you're going to find. Go to the
Yeah, yeah,
museum because they've got a whole display table there of
absolutely.
what you'll look for on the beach. Have a look because if you've seen something before, you're more likely to recognize it when you see it out on the beach,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and you have an idea of what you're looking for. And just look, just walk up and down and look carefully over the shingle banks. I
yeah,
think is the
yeah.
best advice I can
And
give. That's what we tell
the dinosaur
people.
bone is usually kind of like a dark color, usually black,
Dark
dark
black
black.
with a honeycomb pattern.
With a honeycomb pattern,
Um,
just like the centre of
yeah.
Malteser, and look for that honeycomb effect,
Mm.
and the centre of the bone kind of honeycomb effect sometimes has like a kind of white calcite in them sometimes.
Yeah, it can have white calcite or like pyrite in
Yeah,
gold
yeah,
pyrite.
yeah, yeah,
It'd be very hard.
yeah, very
Um,
heavy compared
one
to
way to
what you're used
distinguish it,
to. Go on.
yeah, one way to if you bone or wood, if you try and scrape it on a rock, if it's wood, it will leave like a black or a brown mark.
Yeah,
If it's bone, it won't.
yeah.
That's another way to if you're not sure, you can always send photos to me through White Coast Fossils. You can send photos to the museums or take them to the museum. Like I know Dinosaur, you can literally walk in with your finds
Oh, good,
and
yeah,
go,
yeah,
"What have I found?"
yeah, yeah,
And they
yeah,
will tell you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I always think just take every rock home. If you're not sure, just take it home. You never know what it might be.
But
If it's
always,
nothing, you
I
can
mean,
just leave it in the
always,
garden.
you know, for the better bones, obviously, if it's got any looks like carbonized black wood or any wood
Yeah.
bits on it. Just make sure, the wood tends to be very soft, doesn't it, on the Isle of Wight, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, it tends to, because it's already been burnt in the Cretaceous and then it's been buried and then it dries out in the sun. It just, and then the pyrite decays as well. It tends to just crumble away.
Yeah. So it crumbles under your finger as well. But whereas the
Yeah.
bone wouldn't.
No.
But then look for any other sign of any black honeycomb effect sticking out of the rock. And that's what you're going to be looking for with the dinosaur bone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if
The
you're very, very
dinosaur teeth are the same, black and shiny.
yeah, black and shiny, because the enamel preserves are very, very well in the fossil record.
Oh yeah.
So it always will be shiny. It won't be, if it looks tooth-like, and it's not shiny, chances are it isn't. But it needs to be really shiny for the teeth. Yeah. And just keep a good pair of eyes out. I mean, I always find that when I take the children out, they're the best ones to find the fossils anyway, because well, A, they're close to the ground, and they've got better eyesight than I have.
Yeah.
So they're always the best ones to take some kids with you when you're fossil hunting. That's why
I know. They always find the good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. So we're coming up to our quick fire round. You've probably heard this one before, but here we go. Different questions though. Different questions. Well, maybe
right.
maybe one's. What's your favourite fossil?
I think it has to be a dinosaur.
Yeah. Classic.
It has to be a dinosaur.
Classic. Can't go wrong with a dinosaur.
Yeah. No.
What would be a dream find if you found it on the Isle of Wight?
I've always dreamt of finding a complete pterosaur skull, tooth pterosaur, in a nodule. So just finding a pterosaur skull-shaped nodule,
just big
the
enough
teeth
to fit in
sticking
your
out.
rucksack as well. That'd be ideal. I mean, actually not that big anyway, but just in a nodule. I've seen a few in museums where they're not. They've been fantastic. I think there's 2 or 3 in the Dinosaur Isle Museum as well. Fantastic. This might be more related to the Isle of Wight than would be to anywhere else, but what would you say is the best time of year to go fossil collecting?
I would say between January and Easter on the island.
Okay,
Tail end of the winter storms, bit of rain. Island's still fairly quiet. There's, you're not in the tourist season, and they tends to be when we find, like I find, the most fossils as well.
Yeah.
Is that time of year? So
I mean, everybody thinks that it's like straight after a big storm. Sure, it can do.
Yeah.
But actually, the big storms actually just, I personally think they just picks everything up, and moves it around, which is great.
Yeah.
And if any landslips come down, obviously don't go over them because they're still unstable. But wait for the tide to do the work for you. So it's not actually the day that it comes down. It's actually the 3 or 4 days afterwards. That's the best time to probably go out and look, because it's had time to work through and start dragging things out of any landslip. That's the best time to go. That's for sure. So last question on the quick fire round. Everybody wants to know, what's your favourite dinosaur?
Oh, I get asked this a lot.
I bet you do.
Always varies. I think I do like the ankylosaurs, like Polacanthus. I just think they're so cool with all the spikes and everything, and each one is so different.
Yeah,
with the arrangement of the spikes and stuff. Yeah, I think they're just an amazing bit of engineering in a dinosaur.
Yeah, so I mean, effectively like as close to a tank as you can get, because it's so armored. And it was short, stubby little creature. If any kids out there have watched Cretaceous, was it Camp Cretaceous, Jurassic Park on Netflix? Dumpy is the nearest thing that they'd come to. A very squat looking dinosaur with spikes along the side and big dermal armor, effectively, over its skin to protect it. It's a cool looking dinosaur, absolutely. I can understand that. There's a lot of people out there that do actually like ankylosaurs in general. So that's great.
I do.
So that's been brilliant, Megan. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And
That's all
we've
right.
gone,
Thank you for having me.
there you go. There's an hour
Yeah.
clocked
Yeah.
already.
I
So,
know.
so it's been great. It's been great to have you on. So if anybody wants to find you or go on a trip and what have you, where can they find you?
If you Google White Coast Fossils or look us up on Facebook or Instagram, we're on there. You can drop us a message or drop us an email.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and you
yeah.
take tours out,
Yeah.
family tours
All
out.
year round.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So if you wanting a local expert to take you out on the beach
Mm.
to find where the best fossils are,
Well, yeah.
or talk to you about geology of the Isle of Wight, you and your fellow fossil hunters at White Fossils
Yeah.
can show you the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, great,
Yeah.
great. Thank you very much. So thank you very
Thank you.
much, everybody, for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you do like and subscribe. It helps getting people on and
Mm.
talking to fellow fossil hunters. Don't forget to check out Fossil UK for fossils, crystals, and fossil hunting experiences. And until the next time, keep searching because you never know what's waiting for you beneath your feet. And I'll put a caveat to that. Take a kid out with you because they'll be able to see spot the fossils before you do. So thank you very much.